Hello and welcome to this mod analysis video for the campaign I just ran. The highlight mods we had were MOCX, a better advent, as well as a few subsequent mods as well. The RPG Overhaul, well, that's our second time running that actually, and a few other little mods as well. But the main ones are MOCX and a better advent are what I'm primarily going to be covering here today. So yeah, let's get stuck in, shall we, with MOCX. So I actually thought it was a pretty damn well done mod actually. I was a little bit worried. I think it's definitely, it really does throw a spanner in the works when they do show up. I do think it was a good thing to give the player a heads up that you're going to see them. You always used to get the sitrep saying MOCX at present due to actually how powerful MOCX can be. Also the fact that, you know, you look at the damage, they can do the same damage that you can do essentially. And if you look at the damage output of your weapons, you're pretty well aware that you can probably one-shot your own soldiers. Therefore, MOCX can probably one-shot you. So it really did change the way I played. I mean, I was using smoke grenades early on, I don't know if you remember. Yeah, they are deadly, MOCX. And we did have, I think it was a Bishan get hit by like 2 MOCX soldiers or something ridiculous. Or no, it was 1 sniper or something like that. And he ended up getting like really badly injured. So that was really quite nasty. Yeah, they're tough. And you did have opportunities to counter them through covert actions, which I didn't really do so much when it came to their tech. I think I did once, possibly, but I did like how we kind of uncovered their facilities, and I liked the rewards as well from the facilities. They really were like nice rewards, like a big chunk of intel I think it was, and maybe a facility data pad, whatever you call it. Where you can actually assault a facility. I think that might have been a reward as well. Not to mention, I think you even get a scientist and an engineer once you liberate. Well, I'll say you don't really liberate MOCX, but once you take them out, which ends up being a kind of alternative network tower mission. So I did quite enjoy them. But yeah, they are tough. You do have to prepare differently for them, which I like. I think that adds a dynamic. It makes you think differently. Like I say, smoke grenades saved our lives. I think Dio would have died, I think, in the first mission we saw them. Some people almost did die. It was a very nasty mission, not to mention we had the Warlock appear as well in that one. I do recommend that mission in particular if you want to see their first appearance. I will put links, by the way, or on the screen what numbers they are. If you are interested in MOCX and seeing some missions, if you go through the playlist for the most recent campaign of XCOM, there is an icon of the MOCX. Anytime MOCX appear, I put their little emblem in the top right hand corner of the thumbnail, so you know it's a MOCX mission. So by all means, there's plenty of those to go through. I would say one criticism I do have is it possibly ended a bit too soon. I mean, I was glad to get rid of them, don't get me wrong, and I think you should give power to the player to potentially do that. But maybe it's because it was covert infiltration, I don't know, and the campaign is naturally a bit longer. Whereas if that was a vanilla playthrough, maybe it would have gone on towards the end sort of thing. I mean, we ran 80 missions, I think, and I think we got rid of MOCX around the 50s. Most normal vanilla campaigns, I find in the past, they were about 60 parts, just over 60, so I guess it kind of does add up, really. But yeah, they were really good, and I really liked the the fact that they have pictures as well. You see the posters of MOCX soldiers around the maps as well. But yeah, they were good, and I like that they dropped their weapons as well. It's a shame we never got round to, I guess, taking their, like capturing them, and potentially rehabilitating them to be XCOM soldiers. That would have been kind of cool to have like a novelty soldier that was that was from MOCX originally. Could have been randomly generated person, that'd have been no problem. But yeah, it would have been quite cool actually to do that. And also, if you do want to choose who the MOCX soldiers are, you can create dark VIPs, as you might be aware in the character selection screen. So you can actually like create a bunch of soldiers for MOCX if you really wanted to. If there's somebody you particularly want to kill. But yeah, they were pretty damn good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend MOCX. There is also another mod I noticed that makes them act like a separate faction, I think. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's 2 different MOCX initiatives. This is the standard one I think I used, and then I think there's another one where they are kind of treated like a separate faction, and they can be against you and Advent, which lore-wise doesn't really make sense to me, because you kind of figured if they were doing the exact same thing as us and fighting Advent at times, wouldn't they just be on our side? So that's an option though if you're looking for just a separate faction, perhaps. If you're not too fussed about, you know, the lore, as it were, which, understandable, it's XCOM, the story's basic as anything. The story is what you kind of create yourself, to be honest. So yeah, that is an option as well. But for something like that, I'd maybe recommend the Hive, even though they are bloody brutal. Yeah, the Hive is a pretty good one. But yeah, MOCX, solid mod. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend that one. That was really good fun. So I don't really have a lot more to say on it. Like I say, I think I like the fact that we could use their weapons. What was the thing? If we have a little quick look in here, let's just use anyone. If we scroll down far enough, you can see all these Advent weapons. Where are you? Where are you? You're somewhere here. Maybe I sold them. Advent Gauss Cannon, that was sort of their equivalent of plasma, as it were. So there's one example. I don't know if there's many. Advent Scatterguns. Yeah, you see, this is their sort of plasma, as it were. I might have sold all of the other stuff just to sort of get even more supplies because I'm greedy. Yeah, but you can get their weapons. I mean, I think that's good, especially if you're a little bit short, especially if you're running covert infiltration. It could be really handy having those weapons as spare. I will certainly say that. Yeah, that is really helpful. And we did use one of their weapons, I think on multiple occasions actually. They were just really helpful to have spare. If you're trying to keep hold, maybe if you're low in supplies or alloys or any of the main resources, it is a way that you can fill out the roster in covert infiltration. If you're running a bunch of infiltrations simultaneously, then it can sort of really help you out resource-wise. So that's another aspect of the mod I do quite like. By the way, when it comes to actually extracting MOCX soldiers, you need the Fulton harness, I believe. So if you have a little look here, the thing you would need to do that if you want to sort of capture them and then try and convert them is this. I've used this before in previous campaigns. For some reason, I just never got around to using it here. The Fulton harness allows you to extract units and supplies from the combat zone without an evacuation zone. So you can just go, you can use that I think on your own soldiers actually. I've used it on a VIP before. I remember one time that I had to get out there. I think we were kind of getting attacked by a lot of Overwatchers. But anyway, that's an old campaign. Yeah, so you would use this to extract them once you've stunned them. I remember they're stunned for like 16 turns, which is I think it's 8 turns, 16 actions I believe it is. So it's a long time. You've got plenty of time to get them out of there. I don't know if you can knock them out. That would have been a nice feature. I don't recall seeing that. So that's something I'd perhaps add if there's an option to knock them out. Would be quite cool. Kind of like with the like a VIP actually, a dark VIP. You can choose to kill them or knock them out. So maybe it was an action and I just didn't notice it. But if it's not, that is something I would love to see implemented in it because I think it's an easier way to extract MOCX soldiers. Also a little bit more, I don't know, realistic if you want to go that far, rather than sticking a balloon on their ankle and watching them float up, which is really funny, but don't get me wrong, it is funny. But yeah, that's pretty much most of what I've got to say about MOCX, I suppose, so I guess we'll move on to the next mod. Okay, the next mod is A Better Advent, as well as, in fact there were 4 mods that related to the A Better 2 series as well. I'll have those on the screen now. The main ones were A Better Advent, which overhauls the basic troops, as it were. Well, not overhauls, it just adds in some more. And then we've also got A Baby's Advent, which is actually quite noteworthy, because I was too much of a coward to run everything and want, having alien primes do whatever they want is just a little bit cheesy, but I figured MOCX was enough of a multiplier when it came to my difficulties, so I was like, I can get away with having A Baby's Advent. So A Better Advent adds a lot of prime enemies, so imagine your Muton, standard Muton with like, I don't know, 13 health or whatever, a Muton Prime will have 18 health, a bit more armor, and perhaps, perhaps that's it actually, standard abilities, they're just a bit meatier. They also get prime reactions. Anytime they take damage, they would get to move. They get an action themselves. I don't think it's a move, I think it's just an action, so they can do what they want with that, I believe. I could be wrong, by the way. So do your own research on that, I can't quite remember, been a long time. But yeah, they can get their own action, and I was like, nah, I'm already running MOCX, the last thing I need every prime enemy I see, just going like, every time I take one shot at them, because very few of them are one-shot kills, very, very few of them. It's very difficult to get a one-shot kill on any prime enemy. Yeah, so I decided to get rid of that ability they had. They still had the ability to do something upon activation, So, for instance, the Archon Prime was able to use Blazing Pinions on activation, I think. I only saw that happen once. And thankfully it was at the start of my turn. The Sectopod, for instance, would immediately go into its tool, standing up mode. So that was something I think it could do straight away. I even think it might have gotten a reaction shot one time. I might be wrong. But yeah, they're tough. They're basically just meatier enemies. You just got more health to chew through. So arguably it's just a bit bullet spongy. But the prime enemies are pretty good. Another note actually is I don't know if there was a Viper Prime, but there was an enemy called the Boa. Which thankfully I never really got to see in action. I made sure to kill them all rather efficiently. But as you might understand with a boa in real life, they are constrictors, I think. So they use their body mass and their muscle to constrict their prey. And these boas are the same sort of thing. They have very, very high, I guess, melee damage, you could say. So when they do constrict one of your soldiers, they're doing a lot more than 2 damage. Let's just put it that way. Thankfully, I never dealt with those. I was warned profusely, and I'm glad I heeded those warnings as well. They sound pretty deadly. So yeah, avoid cuddling boas if you can. that would be good. What else? The basic troops. There were a lot of variations of the basic soldiers, kind of like in Lone War. We didn't see that many of them. You had like Advent Strikers, so they had like a shotgun, a gunslinger. Don't think there was a sniper. There might have been one time actually a sharpshooter, possibly. But yeah, you did have some variations of the basic troopers. The demolitionist, I think there was. You can guess what they all do. They're just subtle variations of Advent, which can do one thing. One can maybe launch grenades afar. One has return fire because it's got a pistol, as well as fan fire or face off. I think it's face off actually the gunslinger has, because we got to use one ourselves on one of the missions, thanks to a covert action. Or a covert order, whatever it's called. Resistance order, that's it. Yeah, what else was there? Yeah, just various prime enemies. So you had like different variations of mutons. One that could, well, there was like an infector, which I think poisoned you if it shot at you. There was a muton pyro, I think it was called, so that one would burn you. And maybe had a incendiary grenade, possibly. I don't remember. I don't think I ever let one use one, so that was good. But yeah, you just had variations like that. I think there was a berserker that could breathe fire as well. Again, I'm glad I didn't discover that, or didn't put that to the test. We just made sure to kill everything as quickly as possible, which is, the best way to play the game, I think. I think that's probably the way you should play it. As for the Chosen, we did have an overhaul of the Chosen, and this is the first campaign where I would say they were generally all fairly well balanced. For the most part. Would really be very interested in hearing anybody that has watched the playthrough what you thought of the Chosen in this. It's the first time the Hunter wasn't complete ass, although no, he wasn't too bad. I think most of the missions I came across him I was sending in a weaker squad, so maybe it seemed that way, but he did seem marginally better than normal. I mean, normally he's just a joke, it's a shame because he's so funny, but he's normally just awful. But this time he seemed a little bit tougher. The Warlock was, I thought, a little bit better balanced. The Warlock had a new ability as well. I can't remember what it was, but an ability it doesn't have in the vanilla game. It might be teleport, to be honest. Kind of like a codex. No, well, not really like a codex. It can just teleport on its turn, rather than teleport upon being fired at. That was something our Hunter picked up actually in this playthrough. Was it picked up Planewalker, which means every time it got shot at, rather like a codex, it will teleport away. No, like an avatar, sorry, it will teleport away. That's what I mean. Yeah, so that made, I think that balanced the Hunter quite nicely, actually, because it did mean it was a bit tougher to just, you don't just bully it, and it can't really do anything in return. Like the Assassin on its turn, it can, stab you up, or it can run really far away, or, conceal itself. The Warlock can go into stasis, bring out some enemies for you to take on while it's in stasis. But yeah, I think that balanced the Hunter quite nicely. I did actually think that was pretty good. The Assassin itself was the same old nonsense. She's always fairly tough at first, and then, once you're able to deal with her, fairly straightforward. Kind of like them all, really, though. But yeah, the Warlock had a weakness to grenades, if I recall, or explosives. And that was our only saving grace. And I think you need that with the Warlock, because I don't know how we would have dealt with him early in the game. But the fact that he was weak to grenades, which I think might be the standard, means you just grenade spam, which early game is really easy to do because your aim is a bit sucky. It's quite nice and satisfying just throwing grenades at enemies, especially for new players. They often think grenades are the solution to everything, which they are quite a lot of the time, but you need to have other solutions. All in all, I think that went quite well with the Better Advent. Would I recommend it? Yeah, possibly. I think if you've not used it, perhaps use it and some of the subsequent mods. Maybe don't have another enemy mod with it. If you do want to go full Advent Primes, I would say don't use MOCX, don't use the Hive, don't use anything else. Just use a Better Advent. That's all you need, because that's going to give you, if you're going to use it with the Primes in their full glory, you are going to need, that's as difficult as you need it, I promise you. I reckon. At least I reckon anyway. I'm sure there's better players out there than me. But I would have struggled, I think. I really, really would have struggled. So all in all, I'd say it's a pretty good mod. It's a pretty old one, actually. It does date back. You could always just use Lawn War enemies as another option. There is a Lawn War pack where you don't need to use the Lawn War mod. So that has, I think, a larger variety of enemies, but obviously you don't get those primes, is the trade-off. So I would be more tempted to go with... I'd probably be more tempted to go with the Lawn War pack if I had to choose between the two, without further modding. That said, I do like the, I think I used a Better Advent Better Chosen, I think it was. A Better Chosen, I'm sure I did. I can't remember off the top of my head. I put it on the screen earlier, I'm sure, what it was, the 4 A Better mods I used. But, it was pretty good. Were there any enemies that took me by surprise? Really, it was just the ones that looked particularly different were like the boa, to be honest. That looked interesting. It would have been nice to maybe see that more often, or maybe even a tiny bit earlier on. We didn't see it till really late. I think we'd already come across gatekeepers by the time we saw it, which I found really bizarre, because it definitely could have appeared earlier. So I think maybe it needs a little bit of a rebalancing as to when you see some of the enemies, because they would have been kind of a fun challenge. Like, even though I don't want to see what they can do, it would have been kind of fun to maybe see what they can do. But yeah, so all in all, I would say they do get a good, I would recommend it, but there are also other mods you can use, overhaul mods, that overdo the basic Advent Force, but they're a good starting point, that's for sure. Definitely worth a spin once, I would say. Right, and I suppose we might as well have another discussion about Musashi's RPG Overhaul mod, which has been an absolute blast. It's definitely made this playthrough a lot easier. I think it was balanced well with the previous playthrough I did, because I made it too difficult for myself. But the RPG Overhaul mod definitely makes XCOM better than in the vanilla game. Definitely makes them better. And I'd say a lot better than they, each soldier's a lot better than they are in Lawn War. So yeah, they're pretty overpowered. I mean, some of the stuff we were pulling off was just ridiculous. Fang in the last mission. I mean, it's the first time as well I've used what is it called? If we go soldier ability, the serum, isn't it? Overdrive serum. I mean, this build was just ridiculous as a sword wielder goes with the combat drugs here, because you get increased mobility, reduction to damage, and you get a lot more armor. So you just have one guy with Reaper go around and just take everybody on, and then you've got Blade Storm as well, and it's just unbelievable. But I did have a lot of fun with these builds. I kind of let the side down this playthrough. I did not give it much variety. I should have given it a lot more variety. Like, I could have had somebody like Duke, perhaps, I don't know, I could have gone actually a bit more, maybe he could have gone shotgun or something with a, what do you call it, a gauntlet or something like that. So shotgun flamethrower, just to make it sort of more interesting rather than just another person that shoots, is what I should have done. So yeah, I really should have given it a lot more variety, because it wasn't until the very end when people came and was like, oh, let's do something different. And, leaving it to the end is a bit, what's the point? Because they're all going to be down here. Or they're going to be people that aren't, someone like this that I'm not going to bring back. I mean, I think it was Barakat, I made a shotgun hacker sort of thing, which was actually quite a fun build. I actually quite enjoyed that. So, like I say, I definitely let the side down when it came to experimenting. That said, RPG Overhaul definitely gets a strong recommend for me. I may use it again someday. I don't want to use it in my next playthrough. The idea of using it potentially with a long war playthrough sounds kind of wild, if that's compatible. But that's a maybe. That's a maybe. I would see myself potentially coming back to this mod someday. It is just so much fun, and yeah, I really would recommend you give it a go, and try and add yourself as well a bit more of a challenge. Use one of these mods that we're talking about, whether it is a better Advent, to make Advent a bit more difficult, or the Long War enemy pack, or even just a faction or two, maybe just add in the Hive, or Bio Division, just one of those. Throw in this, because you can make some really specific builds. I mean, we had Spoon who did no damage, but his usefulness was just ridiculous. So he was able to be a medic, but we kind of never really did anything with that. That was just extra. Grenadier Spotter was enough. We could have gone maybe Grenadier Spotter tank, and he could have had sort of more defensive abilities. That would have been really cool. That would have been better. That is the problem with RPG Overhaul, is sometimes you add in stuff that isn't compatible, or if you have too many primary weapon type things, then you're going to have some problems. In fact, I can demonstrate this by going promote. Okay, let's just pick anything. Thank you. Okay. So some classes are primary, some are secondary. The ones up here, as you can see, these are all primary, although Sentinel just complements other classes. Your primary class mods, these are your main weapon ones, are Assault Infantry, Gunner, you've got Sniper. Grenadier can be both if you use the Micro Grenade Launcher mod, so that I found really useful. So that's the thing, you need to try and make sure you can make things both, I suppose. Ranger can be both. Hacker is only a secondary, because you can have a Gremlin. See, the thing I would have loved would have been something like a Hacker Sword-Off Shotgun, like a Hacker Marauder. But they're both secondary weapons, so where is the Marauder? This is an extra one I downloaded. Yeah, these use the Sword-Off Shotgun, but this isn't part of the main mod. But that said, look at something like the Purifier. That's a secondary. The Gauntlet's a secondary. I guess it would have been a bit weird to do that when you think about it, because you wouldn't have much you could do. You could launch one rocket, maybe use the flamethrower twice, and use your Gremlin for like a couple of combat protocols. But I'd have been fine with that. It just would have been interesting to experiment. So, would be nice if some of the secondaries also work as primaries. So you can have a primary anything, primary Gauntlet, primary Holo Targeter, Holo Targeter Gremlin. So that would be pure support, or Hacker. So that would have been kind of fun. Yeah, because it just forces the player to do something really weird. Yeah, that would have been fun to experiment with. I still did, like I say, let the side down, and I could have experimented a little bit more. Perhaps, like I say, a few people were willing to. Duke was willing to be whatever. McDowell wants to be heavies. Probably could have experimented with Peter. Even a lot of the old schoolers, Sakamoto. I think Sakamoto was kind of interesting, actually, because he had some ridiculous abilities. He could have been like a campaign MVP if I used him a lot more. But he went Skirmisher, Infantry, and then we had Survival Tank. That was kind of interesting. I think the Skirmisher stuff's kind of fun. That's for sure. What else have we got down here? I'm not really sure. Nothing much, really. Just Overwatchers. Overwatchers are fantastic. As every playthrough I do, I just fall in love with Overwatch builds more and more. They're quite difficult to take a leap of faith to when you start off playing XCOM. You're like, but I could just take a shot now. But really, they're definitely necessary in the game. Goose is another example of an odd build. I think we had something like this last time. We went Grenadier, Ranger, and Scout. Scout was just there to pick up something like Conceal or something later on. But Grenadier, we went with primary grenade launcher this time and secondary sword. You could do it the other way around, but the primary grenade launcher means you get double the grenades at half the damage. So that was kind of fun. Combine that with heavy ordnance, really nice. But yeah, there are some interesting things you can do. Like I say, imagine having like a I could have done something like a sword gremlin or a sword gauntlet. Could have been kind of fun. Perhaps I could have done that with Slicer rather than sword and pistol. It just would have been a bit different. So there are loads and loads of different builds you can do. Loads of different builds. So do have fun with it and do experiment with it, because there's so much you can do. That's why I could see myself coming back to it someday. If I can find sort of good counter mods for it, you know, a good challenge, then I would definitely consider that someday. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. RPG Overhaul has been a delight. I think you've all enjoyed it, given the reception to dual-wielding swords and stuff like that. Dirty Kick as well. Oh, can we take a moment to just appreciate the ability Dirty Kick? It's been the funniest ability ever. Where is it? This is on the Scrapper, so I had to download this separately. This is not part of RPG Overhaul, it's sort of a complementary mod to it. But yeah, Dirty Kick in the Scrapper, you know, oh, so much fun. So much fun. Yeah, would recommend that. I guess the last thing I want to do is talk about Rockets 2.0, or I think it's Rocket Launchers 2.0. That was really amazing. I think we've all fallen in love with the plasma ejector, haven't we? Yeah, if you grab the Illyrium rocket launcher, grab some plasma ejectors, these things. It says the damage is 36. It's actually, I think it's between 1 and 36. I never saw it do less than 10. I don't think I did. It always seemed to do between sort of 16 and 28, generally speaking. But this weapon, for goodness sake, if you can use it, use it. I think we'll be able to use it in the next playthrough. I believe there's a strictly Rocketeer build. So we could have up to 3 Rocketeers, which means a lot of plasma ejectors. So this baby might be making a return. Yes, this baby, it really might be. I mean, thinking about interesting builds, another thing we could have done, you know, we could have gone rocket launcher here and then primary weapon be something a bit different, like a sword, or not a grenade launcher, but the cannon's just so overpowered. I think that's a lot of weight to carry around. But maybe we could have gone something like a sword, in case anybody gets too close, you can go stabby stab. Just would have given it a little bit of a twist, I think. That's a lot of damage. I think I might be enforcing more like weapon rules next time. I think RPGO, the RPG Overhaul mod, you can choose to have sort of break the, I guess, the rules in terms of weapons and classes. And that's what we did here. Everybody could use anything. So really anybody could just use we could just have used beam cannons with everybody, and everybody does stupid damage. But that would have been no fun, would it? But yeah, Rocket Launchers 2.0, pick it up. It's a great mod, and it's a lot of fun with a Rocketeer. Yeah, I had a lot of fun of those builds. Alright, I kind of got through everything really quickly. I swear every time I do one of these videos, it gets quicker and quicker. Either I talk too quickly, or I just am not very interested and don't have a lot to say. But yeah, I'd say it was a successful playthrough. By all means, do go and have a look if you're unfamiliar with the mods I'm talking about. MOCX, just look for the little emblem on the playlist on each video, and you can look at strictly MOCX videos if you want. Take a look at how deadly MOCX are. Yeah, that's kind of it really. So yeah, it's nice to put RPG Overhaul to rest for a playthrough. Next year it'll be a different set of mods. I think it's Alpha 115. I said 112 last time, but it's Alpha 115. His mod pack looks pretty interesting. So I'm looking forward to trying that and seeing how it goes. As well as the Keeper mods, that's 13 different classes, which is still plenty of variety, so I think it'll be interesting. Right, that's pretty much all I've got to say. So if you have any further questions about the mods, by all means do drop me a comment. I'm sure there's tons of stuff I've missed. There always is. There's always stuff I've missed. Even in the last video I missed something. Who got the most commendations and stuff like that. Which was a tie, by the way. I think it was Rannick, possibly McDowell, and maybe Peter. I think something like that. But anyway, yeah, I always miss something. So very much appreciate everybody for watching this, and I'm looking forward to another playthrough someday. So that's pretty much the end of this video, so see ya.